Welcome everyone back to Spoiler Warning featuring myself, Tom Colohue. This is the #1 wrestling news show, at least on the Tom Colohue channel, detailing information and exclusive news you cannot find anywhere else. The headlines today will be based on the WWE hosting a You'll Miss Us When We're Gone Smackdown tonight, including big appearances from Roman Reigns, Triple H, John Cena, Cody Rhodes and more. The WWE making a point, and I'll go into a lot more detail on this, that Fox are making a mistake in letting them go. More to come. We will be talking about why Karrion Kross was brought in and how that does relate to the sadly departed Bray Wyatt. We're going to talk Becky Lynch and her current rescue mission. Plans for Punk. No plans for Velveteen Dream. Rumour killing that one. The idea of Raw moving away from Monday nights. Tony Khan and his whatever the hell is happening at the moment. I've got to say, it's a bit of a crazy world we live in. AEW losing wrestling media, which is a real shame because it is very different from where they used to be, I'll tell you that. Triple H and Wargames, Randy Orton return news, Nick Aldis, Raw to SmackDown trade. You'll note a lot of this news has got out in the last hour or so. Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa potentially challenging for the tag team championship belts, and a little bit of disappointment from the NXT management because they didn't quite hit the million viewers that they were looking for. So first and foremost, I want to say a massive thank you to all of you for joining us. We have already hit 20 likes. We have 45 viewers. It's a wonderful thing. And so many people already saying hello. Hello, everyone. We will be going into a lot of detail as to what I've already covered in the headlines. Any questions as regarding it, we will get around to. So, just want to say a big quick hi. Brad, Marcel, Zane, Mick, Joe, Eric, Sean, Razar, Daz, the other Eric, Eric 1, Eric A, Roger, Noob, and Jordan. Welcome everyone on the YouTube side. Also on the Twitch side, we have Spider Boss here as well, already asking questions. So, let's get into our first piece of news, and that's as regards tonight's SmackDown. It is indeed the SmackDown to end all SmackDowns, the season premiere, which is building up to the season premiere next year, which will be similarly paced. They are trying to maintain the same energy that they had when The Rock turned up, when Brock Lesnar beat Kofi Kingston, when we saw, I believe, that was Braun Strowman working with, what's the guy? Big one, likes to throw punches. That show. They're trying to maintain the same energy, and the season premiere is very bankable. Very much something that they can throw at everyone and say, this is a big deal and here is why. With this in mind, Roman Reigns is of course planned to return tonight. We also have John Cena still in play for another couple of weeks, just under a month. Triple H will be opening with an announcement that seems likely to open the show at this point. And we also have the tag team champions, Cody Rhodes, Tyson Fury, thank you Leon, Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso, not to be confused with a tag team of Cody Rhodes and Tyson Fury. That's a very different thing, which would not quite work out in the same way. There's a number of things that are going to be mentioned and or announced. There's plenty of rumours out there already, including Nick Aldis coming in, this is via PWInsider, stating that he'll be coming in as an on-screen authority figure. Why Adam Pearce can't still play that role, I don't know, but it seems to be that's just a way to reintroduce him. There's been talk with Nick Aldis going on for quite a while. I didn't have the full details on this because it's just not something I knew, but there's been discussions with Nick Aldis for a while, and Triple H has been essentially forced to pull the trigger, because if he doesn't, people are going to lose their jobs. This is another example of Triple H pulling the trigger. Hopefully the storyline will be coming in pretty quickly as well, because we do have good storylines and good storytelling that needs to be happening around Nick Aldis if it's going to mean something. Fightful Selector also reporting the identity of the Raw trade moving to SmackDown in exchange for Jey Uso will be identified, will be revealed tonight. My money's on Kevin Owens, because that would make a lot of people not trust Jey Uso. There's plenty more as well, including a big moment for LA Knight in and around the Bloodline tonight that you might want to check out. We have just hit 5 past. We're on 29 likes. Our record at 5 past is 32. We are 3 likes away from breaking that record. Can you get us over the line? We have 66 people here. If you haven't done so yet, please do remember that thumbs up. We still have plenty to discuss, but let's get to some comments, shall we? Hello, Sean. Hello, Michael. Mick, I'll get to that one. Spiderboss says, surprised me Saraya lost the AEW women's title against Shida. Surprised quite a lot of people. Sean says, do you think Triple H announces anything else? No, I think he announces exactly what he was planning to do. Joey says, what do you think the announcement will be? I think logically there's a couple of easy options. If Nick Aldis is coming in as an authority figure, he'll need to be appointed by someone. Triple H is the obvious choice there. Wargames for me is still incoming, but they may be focusing on Crown Jewel first. Also, thank you, as usual, to Fightful for confirming what I've already reported. Sean says, did Nick not want to wrestle for WWE? This is a storyline to get him back into wrestling. I wouldn't read too much into it. Spiderboss says, LA Knight stepping up to Roman Reigns. That is indeed what I said. Roger says, will Nick Aldis wrestle in the future in WWE? Yes, he will. Eric says, Tom, who do you think were the people who attacked Jay White? No idea. Pardon me. Will says, I hope NXT higher up and wrestlers don't get punished for NXT not getting $1 million. Nope. More on that shortly. Joey says, do you see Nick Aldis playing the GM role like Regal did back in 2008 while wrestling? I suspect he might, but I think it will be GM, then it will be wrestling. I still think he gets to be the one to say Wargames. Mark says, okay, Mark. That says, who do you see winning tomorrow, Christian or Danielson? I haven't been following the storyline, so I wouldn't know. Daniel Berry says, hey, hello, Daniel Berry, how are you? Leon says, and you are correct, PWInsider reported that KO is the wrestler being traded from Raw to SmackDown. I actually didn't know that one. I was just speculating. Gotta be honest. Brad says, isn't the SmackDown on November 17th, it being a Friday Night War, kind of a big deal? Maybe. I don't know. Probably not. I don't think they really care about the whole war. It's not a war. Fight's over. They won. Razar says, are there any worries from WWE or talent about the Saudi show coming up with everything going on currently? No. Daniela says, smash the like button if you haven't already. WWE have confirmed Fury and Waller as the ones who answered Cody and Jay's open challenge for the titles tonight. Jonesy, I'm not sure on that one. I don't follow AEW often enough to really know. Mick says, according to Sean, I've already read that one. Again, I'll get to it, Mick. I'll get to it. Jonesy says, will Nick Aldis be babyface or heel? If he's introduced by Triple H, logically he'll be a babyface. Also, if he's an authority figure, he's going up against Roman Reigns. Yes, Spider-Boss, I think once Mercedes is in AEW, she'll be competing for championships. 23 Fresh says, do you think Rampage or Collision will be cancelled? Eventually, one day, I'm sure. Rampage, I think, is on very, very, very difficult turf right now. Collision, though, is brand new, so I don't see that one happening. So, Bray Wyatt. We're going to be skirting around the edges here, but there's a lot to talk about, and there's a lot of information that's been coming out recently, and there's a lot more that I've been able to find since. I can confirm that there was a plan for Karrion Kross to face Bray Wyatt at WrestleMania. In fact, I can go further and say that there is a general belief in the WWE hierarchy that Karrion Kross and Scarlett Bordeaux were hired for Bray Wyatt, were hired to be used in the Wyatt Six, were hired to be used in a way that benefits Bray Wyatt directly. And this is one of the reasons they found a storyline and a good push so hard to come by. There was supposed to be the feud of Drew McIntyre, then the White Rabbit. Karrion Kross has been referred to as the White Rabbit previously, and the first member of the Wyatt Six would have been revealed to be Karrion Kross after that match at WrestleMania. There was also talk of LA Knight being a member of the Wyatt Six. He's said to have been very interested in doing so, but it did not pan out at the time. I can confirm as well, I've reported this previously, Bo Dallas was rehired specifically to work with Bray Wyatt. A number of people, in fact, were hired specifically for Bray Wyatt to work with him in creative aspects, but also to work with him directly in the ring. Karrion Kross was essentially hired to do the heavy lifting for Bray Wyatt so that he didn't have to work too hard in the ring and aggravate, potentially, the condition which unfortunately took him away from us. So I can confirm the match was supposed to happen, but Scarlett and Kross, who were hired to work with Bray Wyatt, are now devoid of concepts and really lacking a good storyline to get them back on track. Spider-Boss says, after many calling Roman Reigns, Roman is appearing tonight. I don't know what actually you've said there. We did know that Roman was going to be appearing tonight. I reported a while back that he'd be defending his title again at Crown Jewel. I reported that just after SummerSlam. Zane, I cannot say what TNT Sports are going to choose to do. Mick says, hi Tom's Mick. Hope you're well. Doing very well, thank you. Welcome, mate. Leon says, I'm trying to just make peace of it, but it's so hard. The more I think about Bray, the more I miss him, which I don't think is unfair. Mick, I am indeed doing a watch party. We do watch parties for every SmackDown. I think it's well worth it and a great show to do. FDR says, hello, Tom. Hello, chat. What's new with Colohue? Not much that I'm really going to talk about on an open platform like this. Let's just say I'm a very, very happy boy at the moment. Spider-Boss says, could we see any calls from NXT to the main roster soon? You ask this almost every time, and the answer is always the same. A lot of calls have been cancelled. When there's space in the main roster, they'll do it. Joey says, did Vince change the Cross and Wyatt match at Mania since Bobby was supposed to face Bray? Yes. Vince changed it. Vince changed it originally towards Brock, and then Vince changed it towards Bobby. Joe says, Tom, do we know who Roman's opponent will be for Crown Jewel? Tonight, I'm sure we will find out, and I don't want to be spoiling anything. Becky Lynch is on a bit of a rescue mission. While I've got you, we have 70 people watching and 37 likes. Give me 3 more and we'll get to 40. I'd very much appreciate it. Becky Lynch is on a bit of a rescue mission. She's been parachuted into NXT with one specific focus in mind, and that is the women's division. It's not just NXT though, and this is why she's appearing on multiple shows. The women's division in general is an area in which she's been very open she is not happy with. Becky herself is making changes to WWE to improve this. The amount of people who stepped up to her is not accidental. She is making a point of getting as many women on screen as she can, and it's not just her doing it, as you know. Triple H and Shawn Michaels directly have her back and are trying to create these opportunities and, as I mentioned before, ensure that people are not going to be fired by featuring them more often. They can't change the cost, but they can massively increase the benefit of a cost-benefit analysis. When it comes to the Becky Lynch mission, she's doing an extremely good job, and NXT in particular is benefiting massively from it. The WWE are disappointed that they did not manage to reach the 1 million figure that they were looking for NXT this week. However, they are very happy with the number that they had, and the fact that despite everything Tony Khan did to try and derail them and to try and compete with them, Triple H, when he initially said it's a marathon, not a sprint, has been proven right, and that was his intention. Yes, they loaded it up with names, but it wasn't a full main roster, and they were going up against supposedly the number 1 show of AEW. AEW historically has called it a victory if they get a certain demographic. They called it the key demo. Nobody else called it that. They just decided it was because it was an area they were winning. They're not winning that anymore. AEW are in a very different position right now than they were a year ago, and even more a year and a half. Hector says, Tom, is there any indication that Nick Aldis will have the same name in WWE or no? No indication whatsoever. Spider-Boss says, the calling Roman Reigns reference is because after any problem Paul Heyman comes up with calling Roman Reigns. Yeah, that's true. Alyssa, more than 600,000 people watched AEW when it was on their channel that they're not used to. Let's not say that nobody cares because that's completely false. P says, Tom, you're the best. Everyone else fails, but you stay true to your roots. Long may you prevail. Evening all chat and mods. Keep it going, Tom. Thank you, Pete. I appreciate it. That's a very nice thing to say. Joey says, Logan Paul is being advertised for Crown Jewel. Do you see him having a rematch with Ricochet? I don't hate that idea. I think there's a lot that they could still do there. But I think there's a lot of people right now who could benefit more from it, having Ricochet already wrestled. I think we go a little bit to like the face side of the card, naturally. So there's a few people it could be. He's kind of a free agent, so he can work on both Raw or SmackDown. I'd love to see him take on Sami Zayn, personally. Steven says, Survivor Series Wargames is back for 2 times this year. I previously mentioned that Wargames was planned. I think I mentioned this originally back in April. Confirmed it in June, and we've been going strong ever since. It's nice to see another report stating it's going to be War Games, confirming what I've already reported. It's nice to have people sort of stacking on top of me, or, you know, stepping on me, but you get what you get. And honestly, I'm very, very happy with the results of a lot of the reports that I've been putting out recently. There's been a lot of confirmations. This recent confirmation of Randy Orton, very helpful as well, the news there. So I'm very happy with the amount of reports that have been proven true, Wargames is indeed coming back. Wow, Martin. 1 year. 12 whole months of being a channel supporter. Thank you very much. Genuinely appreciate it. Thank you kindly. Welcome to the show. Leon says the women's division has been cooked for a while now. Do you mean cooking? Razar says, shout out to Becky using her position to help the division. She's becoming one of my favourites with what she's been doing this year. Brad echoes the sentiment saying, thank you, Becky Lynch. Roger says, when will Brock Lesnar be returning? Will he still be a heel? Once again, there is a contract negotiation that needs to take place first. I personally suspect he'll be back well in time for the Rumble. Spider-Boss says, AEW need a draw since CM Punk got fired. AEW's ratings began to slow down. That's not entirely true. So, Rampage debuted, and since then the ratings have been slowing down. Since CM Punk debuted, with a massive spike, it's been downhill. But that's AEW. It's been a long time since we've actually had an honest number. I've been saying this for a long time. The retention rate is the worst thing that AEW have to compete with. It's not WWE, it's their own retention rate. People don't come back. If you get a casual viewer, they come in, they look around, they don't come back. They need to find a way to fix this. So the ratings have been going down years now. Years. And it's well worth the tracking because it's much faster than WWE's. Mick says, Rousey took to Instagram to post a series of photos. She included in the caption, sorry I couldn't hear you from our retirement, implying retirement. Well, yeah, she left, so... Will says, it feels like when Becky's done wrestling, she'll be helping to book the women's division. I suspect once she is done wrestling, she'll be elsewhere and not at all involved with WWE. Coop43 says, during his interview with Chris Van Vliet, Karrion Kross revealed he was supposed to work with Bray Wyatt at this year's WrestleMania. I shared a lot more details on that, Coop43. By all means, zip back and check it out. Thank you, Moxie. Welcome to the show. Spider-Boss says, finally Carlito returned. Do you think he could challenge Rey Mysterio? I mean, if it's a contract for matches, they can make him challenge whoever they want. Thank you, Brad. Appreciate that. JJ says, maybe it's me, but I think if Becky was on NXT, it would have hit 1 million, since we know she brings in views too. We had Asuka instead, but when we have John Cena, when you have Paul Heyman, when you have Cody, they trusted them to get the job done, and apparently not. Alyssa, I'm not sure what you're saying. You say, why does Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens turn heel or turn Sami Zayn? They're both faces. I don't know what you're asking. Steven says, Survivor Series Wargames is a whole lot better than SmackDown vs. Raw. Triple H is fully in control of creative. He cooked it. You like cooked, don't you? You like cooked. To be clear, Triple H has been fully in control of creative for more than a year. All these reports right now about, Triple H is in charge. Celebrate because Triple H is in charge. He was always in charge. It's engagement farming. He was always in charge. It's clickbait. Dane says, MJF and Adam Cole are the best thing in AEW. They are so entertaining. I agree with that entirely. Joey says, I noticed on Raw a lot of women who weren't being used appeared on TV. It goes along with your report of Triple H trying to avoid cuts. And Spider-Boss says, do you think Shayna is next in line for Rhea Ripley? Seems to suggest so, given that she laid her out. Moxie's hoping for the stare down, which is Roman Reigns Rhea Ripley for those not in the know. Spider-Boss says, last time NXT defeated AEW Dynamite was in 2020 with NXT Great American Bash pay-per-view. And yeah, they're going to be pretty religiously beating them anytime they compete now. Martin said, this is what I meant over storylines. It's not they don't have great matches, but they don't tell a good story of how they get there, just my opinion. The retention rate is something I've been talking about for a while. They're just nowhere near a point where they can actually compete. And it's been going downhill, unfortunately. Camo says, hey Tom, hope you've had a good day. I know I'm looking forward to the weekend, hoping the person being traded for Jay is a genuine shock. Stay off the internet, mate. Martin says, P.S. the MJF angle was distasteful for me. Wrong time, wrong place, especially now. Fleming says, do you think we're getting a Smackdown? Yeah, Smackdown happens. Smackdown happens every Friday. Tune in, it's worth it. Couple of quick updates and clarifications on some things that I've reported. No, the WWE has zero interest in CM Punk. Now that everyone else is saying it, hopefully people are starting to believe me. It's one of those things. I've been reporting since day one. He will not be going back to WWE. Now we're seeing Meltzer come out of it. Now we're seeing Sean Ross Sapp come out of it. Suddenly people are starting to listen. Like, seriously? I'm right here. I'm right here. Obviously, I'm not meaning people here. You guys know. You guys watch the video. You guys know what I know. And Velveteen Dream. Velveteen Dream was not at the Performance Center. Velveteen Dream has not been getting therapy. Velveteen Dream has not had any connection with the WWE in any way, shape or form for a very, very long time. The report from BWE stating that he had was complete garbage. Just being clear on that one. Complete garbage. Joey says, do you think Triple H could announce the King of the Ring returning? No. Sean says, I'd imagine that's supposed to say, hey Tom, what is your opinion on TK's meltdown? I think he drew a lot of attention to the fact that AEW was on the wrong day, and that drew a lot of positive attention to the show. I think then he didn't stop, and he just kept going. I'm not sure what's happening right now. I'm really not sure what's happening right now, but it's awkward, and it's difficult, and it's difficult to watch. That said, hopefully, once he calms down a little bit, he can move on. It's a little bit Donald Trump in that he's whipping up his base, but what he's not really realising is that his base is getting smaller because of things like this. Steven suggests CM Punk could sign to Impact Wrestling. Martin, thank you, says, anyone who hasn't caught a SmackDown watch-along, trust me, you need to watch it. I have a great time there. Tell you that. I have a great time. Pardon me. Razar says, I always believed you about the Punk news, people finally catching up. Indeed, the word is starting to get out, and you can see that with the way that the channel is growing at the moment. We reached today 5,300 subscribers, something we've been working towards for a little while. If you're new here, by all means, click subscribe. We're also only 4 likes away from 50, so please consider hitting that like button if you haven't done so as of yet. Joey says, BWE is looking real bad after their Velveteen report. Yep, but nowadays they seem to be confirming everything everyone else says. What have BWE reported solo since the Velveteen Dream report? Because right now, they're being quoted a lot for things that other people are saying. Squid said, Dream had so much potential, too bad he was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. That's one way of saying it, yes. Martin says, do you think TK should maybe go fully background as an owner and hire a proper person to deal with day-to-day running? I think he puts a lot of pressure on himself because he simply believes that he's the only person who can do the job. I think he needs to bring in some creative writers and bring in some actual management and talent relations, and I think that would seriously improve AEW and also improve his mental health in general. Steve says, hey Tom, watching on delay, catching up, is Tony Khan's Twitter account damaging Tony Khan as a person? Possibly, but as I say, he's sort of creating a lot of stress that he is now under, so I do think he just needs to find a way to relax a little bit. Riyadh says, hey Tom, hope you and the family are doing great. Doing good, thank you Riyadh, appreciate that. John Gillis says, Tony needs to take some time off. I wouldn't go that far, I just think he needs to organise his workload a little bit better. There is talk of Raw moving from Monday nights. This is largely coming out from WrestleVotes. WrestleVotes, who previously worked with Give Me Sport and reported in July there would be mass layoffs. So they're not infallible, just want to be clear on that one. I do not expect Raw to move from Monday nights, especially when we don't even know who's going to be getting Raw yet. A deal is not in place, despite what a lot of people seem to have decided. Spiderboss says, I think AEW need to book better their women's division. Ever since Britt Baker lost the AEW women's title, the booking of the women's division has been bad. I just think they don't get enough time and attention, and it really is starting to show recently. Blue says, hi Tom, TK turning into Bischoff when he started losing to WWF. AEW feels on the decline, he doesn't know how to turn it around, so he's stoking tribalism because it worked in the past. Not unfair, tribalism certainly did help to launch AEW, and it's a well they can go back to. Zane says, I can see Nick Aldis in a GM role. He's such a good promo that it would be stupid to not use him on TV. Hopefully his transitions to being a semi-regular performer on the main roster. I would lean towards Sonya Deville role rather than Adam Pearce role. Hello Steve, how you doing mate? Says, what's up Tom and everyone in the chat? Hope everyone is keeping well. Doing very well, thank you Steve, and I hope your channel's doing great as well. Eric says, ever since last Tuesday/Wednesday, Tony Khan has become a broken man, going on a full-blown meltdown. I wouldn't go that far, and when you say ever since last Wednesday, he really kicked into gear on Wednesday. It's only 2 days later. Martin, I agree with that. I've actually said this myself. The fact that so much of AEW, and this includes Chris Jericho as an example, Cody Rhodes was a perfect example of this. They couldn't care less about AEW. They were just focused on taking down WWE. And as an end result of that, you hear AEW, you think WWE. They drove a lot of people back into wrestling and back to WWE. Now, of course, taking Jade Cargill, taking Cody Rhodes as they have, WWE taking everything. Yes, Martin, I absolutely agree. I believe we did. Keyshawn says, what is the point for Swerve to beat Hangman to then lose in a number one contenders match? Wrestling. It guarantees more wrestling on the show. Spider-Boss says, what do you think about Adam Copeland, formerly known as Edge on AEW so far? Far too early. Far too early. Steve says, who are your favourite GMs ever for Raw and SmackDown? Paige. I think Paige was a fantastic GM. I think Daniel Bryan was a fantastic GM. I think Raw didn't have any good GMs at any point in their entire history. Hector says, Tony Khan's biggest issue for me is that there's no one in AEW to tell him no, so he does whatever he wants regardless of the negative reaction. Let's get on to that, because I have something on that. There used to be quite a large amount of people who would advise and assist Tony Khan. A lot of people who would suggest maybe that's not the right move, or suggest better options. He also spoke with a lot of members of wrestling media. We know for a fact that he's spoken with people such as Dave Meltzer, Sean Ross Sapp, Wade Keller, etc. They've connected, they've communicated, they've interviewed. But he also had a lot of people in wrestling media who he'd regularly talk to about what they wanted out of wrestling, in the hope that they had their finger on the pulse and they could tell him what storylines to book. I mess around with you not. A lot of storylines in AEW have been pitched by wrestling journalists. He has now lost those wrestling journalists. The circle of trusted people around Tony Khan continues to get smaller. It started to brawl out when he stopped trusting a large amount of people who were there to book, there to help. And EVP, the role, has basically gone underground. There is a feeling of isolation, I'm told, around Tony Khan at the moment. And the wrestling media are basically now deciding, well, this WWE is quite good. We like that Triple H guy. And they've basically left him be. This, as you might expect, has created problems. Because the circle of people around Tony Khan is simply no more. And you can see the result live on Twitter. King Azza says, hey Tom, do you think we're getting Solo versus Roman at the Rumble? Nope. Joey says, if NXT ratings keep trending upwards, could they be getting a TV deal on the same level as AEW or bigger? WWE beat AEW in the ratings, the intention being not just that they can actually get a better TV deal because the ratings are good, but also they want a better TV deal than AEW because their ratings are better. See, here's the thing. AEW did beat WWE NXT for a very long time, and they used that to basically say, we are the it show. WWE moved away, and AEW lost that. They lost the ability to say, we're the superior show, because they weren't taking anyone on. The next time they competed was SmackDown versus Rampage, and every single week they get destroyed, because it's not a fair fight. It's just not a fair fight in any way, shape or form. They're on completely different sections, cable, network, etc. They have different fan bases, and Fox is Fox, you know? How do you beat that? So the facade is lifted a little bit. So what does AEW still have to cling on to? Well, they still have good wrestling. They still have good shows. They have Wembley that they can cling on to. All In was a huge moment for AEW. That said, there is so much more that they still need to focus on, because right now, the story is not the in-ring. The story hasn't been in-ring for a long time. The story is backstage fighting. The story is CM Punk who's not there anymore. The story is Tony Khan melting down on Twitter. The story is Jade Cargill leaving. That's the story. The narrative is shifted away from Tony Khan. And wrestling media's gone with it. Sean says, why isn't Edge drawing in AEW? For the same reason he wasn't drawing in WWE. People just aren't that interested anymore. Keyshawn says, when do you think Cody and Jay will face Jimmy and Solo? More on that shortly. Martin says, it's not that I hate AEW, it's just not what it started as. It's like Morecambe trying to be Liverpool in 2 years. It isn't possible. I think they did a damn good job and came very close. But focusing on trying to beat someone while it certainly was a very good marketing method, it has failed them because they haven't focused on what they do. They've focused on what other people do. Also, we were promised that it would be a massive alternative, and it just didn't happen. It just didn't happen. They're extremely similar to WWE. AEW and WWE are both sports entertainment, no matter what they try and tell you. Daniela says, Teddy Long has to be one of the greatest GMs. Joey says, I think Tony Khan letting his wrestlers run talent relations is a mistake. At this point, he is no longer doing that. Spider-Boss says, my favourite SmackDown GM is Teddy Long. Keyshawn says, where were the EVPs on the head-to-head show? Aren't they big draws? The EVPs are, however, they don't have dedicated full-time schedules. They do have their own things to do. Roger, we'll get to that. Martin's saying about Tony Khan, Dave Meltzer was his guy, now he's turned. Funnily enough, it was the CM Punk thing. John Gillis says, Triple H has not said a thing this week showing maturity. The first time NXT lost to AEW, Triple H said, quite rightly, congratulations, it's a marathon, not a sprint. That's what people are remembering now. He's been proven right. Blue says, thanks for all this, Tom. I've watched a lot of folks talk about the AEW situation, but I feel like you're the first to really talk about the meat of the situation. So a while ago with Gleb, if many of you remember, we did a financial analysis of AEW, and we talked about what's working for them and what isn't, and that there are difficult moments coming. We talked about the fact that they wouldn't be able to keep big names. Then Cody Rhodes left. The money would run out. And there's more on that. We talked at that point about Jon Moxley working without a contract, which I believe I reported about 3 months before it came out of Fightful Select. And it was one of those. As AEW can get there. They really can. The problem is they need to be happy with the ratings they've got, because otherwise they're going to lose them. Spider-Boss says, I think Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley would be good EVPs in AEW. They could help Tony Khan. Razar says, I feel bad for Tony Khan, kinda. Hasn't done anything awful compared to someone like Vince, but he just needs to shut up and stop tweeting. There's an element of recency bias here. I've seen memes saying, oh, we're all attacking Tony Khan, but have you seen what Vince did? Yes. And we went after him at the same time. This revisionist history that we've been lenient on Vince McMahon, ridiculous. Have you watched the show at any point? Vince McMahon did not get away scot-free from spoiler warning, I tell you that. Spider-Boss says, do you think the firing of CM Punk backfired on Tony Khan? Nope, think he desperately needed to get rid of him a long time previous. Joey says, William Regal was the best GM. Riyadh says, the Tony Khan meltdown on Twitter is hard to watch, not of the opinion that all publicity is good publicity. King Azza says, do you think Roman will give Jimmy a chance to get back in the bloodline? We'll find out tonight. Martin says, having active talent as EVPs is not correct for me. Reminds me of creative control in WCW, if you remember. I do, it was the start of the end. 23 Fresh said, would CM Punk be a good fit for NXT? No, nor is he ever going to go there. Keyshawn says, TK has all the resources to not be another Bischoff or Dixie. He does, but it's not down to resources, it's down to personality at times. You can't just keep throwing money at something that's not working, and it ain't working. Dad says, according to AEW, Christian is next for Adam Copeland at Full Gear. Yep, I've already mentioned that the feud is going to be Adam Copeland versus Christian, and then eventually later on there'll be a tag team. Blue says, Brian commenting that he was helping Tony Kane, not actually booking, was telling. He wanted to make the situation clear. I do wonder how talent is taking TK's one-man booking. A lot of people are shut out. Yes, they are. And there's a lot of experience that is not being leaned on. Hello, Howie. A wondrous afternoon to you too. Lovely way to come in. Joey says it seems like AEW was affected more from Cody leaving than the WWE war. If you guys were watching at that time, I did mention the loss of Cody Rhodes would strike the beginning of the end. It's not just that they took a wrestler, they took a founder and then they pushed him hard. Jade Cargill right here because of it. She won't be the only one. Riyadh says, I think the alternative point is a great one. I'm a huge New Japan fan because they're doing their own thing and not focused on somebody else. Also a huge New Japan fan. I love to just sit down and watch the G1. I just love it. Eric says, I think the other reason why AEW is losing ground is because they lost their bogeyman. That bogeyman is Vince McMahon, which is not unfair either. There was a lot of the build behind them. A lot of the build behind them was the fact that they were an alternative. If you don't like Vince McMahon, come here. Then Vince McMahon left. Triple H came in. Well, Triple H is the alternative, isn't he? Yes, he is. Keyshawn says, do you think Tony Khan should roll with the punches and turn heel? Maybe he is. Maybe he is. Howie says, Tony Khan, I feel, needs to get out of the public eye. Show the company, not Tony, and the atmosphere may change. Michael says, Ring of Honor and AEW booking is a lot for TK to do. As I've mentioned, I just feel he's under a lot of stress right now, and most of that he has put on himself. I just think he needs to work out a way to get a team around him who can help and support him and just lighten the load a little bit, make life a bit easier for him. There's a reason this is happening, and I just think he's struggling. He does have the best intentions. He is trying to put on a great show that's really helping all of the wrestlers and all of the employees to find work and help. But it's not working. Spider-Bell says, Tony Khan spent too much money bringing former WWE guys. They aren't making money. He didn't spend that much money. A lot of people think he spent a lot of money. He didn't. Blue says, how long he held on to Punk was the issue, allowed it to get worse and worse. King Azza says, do you think what Cole said on Monday to Cody was that a tease for WrestleMania? Not sure. If they're going to tease, they'll tease this early though. Keyshawn says, so Tony relied on journalist ideas for booking and not Jim Ross, Jerry Lynn Arn. I didn't say he solely relied on journalists. Didn't say that. Thank you, Martin says, there's 80 in. Let's smash those likes. We are up to 52 likes now with 85 people in. 3 more gets us to 55 and we start heading towards record territory. 23 Fresh says, are you going to watch the Paul fight? Hell no. Brad says, Pillman Jr. is already more interesting than he was in AEW. He hasn't debuted yet. Let's give him time to disappoint first. Give him time. Spider-Boss says, I remember Jericho stables were shots on Vince. Yeah. Martin says, TK needs to become Mr. Khan. Good idea. Well, that might be Nick. FDR says, Wrestling Observer reported that WWE took Tony's tweet regarding NXT not reaching 1 million viewers, despite showcasing Cena and Taker as a declaration of war. Thoughts? Yeah, no. No. That is a really ridiculous thing to say. And sort of suggests he may have been fed that line by someone in AEW. They didn't take it as a declaration of war. They won. Doesn't really matter. They're finding this hilarious. Don't worry. There is no declaration of war. The WWE not at war with AEW. The WWE not at war with Impact Wrestling. The WWE are just focused on the WWE. That's why they're the bigger promotion. Also, decades upon decades of history. It's not easy to break up the monopoly. It's nearly impossible. You have to give AEW massive credit for coming even as close as they did. This is not a situation where we laugh at AEW. They've done tremendously. They've done amazing stuff. The ratings are coming down. WWE fixed their problems, largely by getting rid of Vince McMahon. But how much of that was because AEW pushed them? Do we get great NXT shows without AEW pushing them to provide it? This is important. Steve says, at this moment, do you feel AEW All in 2024 will be as successful as this year, or do you feel 70-80k fans in Wembley was a one-off? I don't feel it was necessarily a one-off, but what I will say is that I think All in 2024 will be slightly less successful simply because it's happening a second time. You know? It's no longer once in a lifetime. A lot of people literally spent a lot of time and effort making sure they could go to Wembley, spending a lot of money, as you know, to make sure they could make it. And it came with challenges. It really did. So when it comes to AEW's All In, I don't think it'll be as successful next year, but I still think it'll make them plenty of money, and I still think it'll help put them on the map. I still think it's worth doing, and I'll still be going. We might get a slightly better seat. Roger says, Tony Khan insisted that Shawn Michaels is not going to win this year's Booker of the Year award, a meaningless paper trophy that is given away by anybody with a wrestling podcast these days. That seemed to be indicating that maybe Dave Meltzer, who hosts those awards, again, may have been in conversation. Peter says, in order for Jade Cargill to become a WWE Women's Champion, she needs to face adversity. Yes. Howie says, yes, he needs to find a support team and grow it. Strong support means growth, which I agree with. Martin says, the sad part was that video in Chicago when talking to the live crowd. I genuinely want them to be an alternative, not a B-Tech WWE. Riyadh says, I also agree, Tony has too much on his plate. During the Monday Night Wars, things started to hit the fan for WCW when they introduced Thunder. Yeah, nobody went on it. Michael said that the way that Ibushi is able to go in and out of AEW while living in Japan, and how Mercedes is able to work across AEW, New Japan and Stardom, shows how much AEW is actually needed. That would not be an option with WWE, which I absolutely agree with. I mean, Mercedes debuts in AEW, suddenly we're singing in a very different tune, you know? She's very proven as a draw. Spider Boss, I don't know. I don't have those details, unfortunately. Keyshawn says, why are a lot of fans saying Bron Breakker got buried, and your thoughts? Because he was embarrassed by someone who's retired. Buried is a strong word, but the WWE, even under Triple H, has a habit of doing this. Once they bring someone back, it was just a case of, you know, beat up this new, fresh up-and-coming guy. But Bron Breakker's on a downward trajectory right now. Like, a downward trajectory. I don't know what it is, but Bron Breakker peaked and is starting to drop. 23 Fresh says, is the NWA getting a new TV deal? I have no sources within the NWA. Howie says, agreed on doing an amazing job on AEW. FDR says, also Meltzer has tweeted 27 times on a single news article. Yeah, sounds like Meltzer. Thank you, Peter, says well said about what we spoke about AEW there. Keyshawn says, competition should make everybody better, and I do think it did, to be fair, and will continue to do so. JJ says, I was actually surprised Tony didn't respond about Becky posting him holding her book since she was on Twitter all day. Since he was on Twitter all day. I mean, he may not have seen it because I was on Instagram, but I really enjoyed that, and I think it's all in good fun. If anything, she's putting him over. FDR says, well said, Tom. Thank you, FDR. Steve says the same. Thank you, Steve. Howie says, yes, 2024 is going to push AEW and other companies. We're going to see a lot of changes and or falls. Peter says, Dave Meltzer said AEW is cold now. It is cold now. They need to find a way to come back. And unfortunately, Tony Khan's tactic right now is to announce some sort of big special announcement. And then after announcing there's going to be a special announcement, try and make up what the actual special announcement is going to be. Because he tends to do that after he's announced it. It's a very confusing method. Riyadh says, once in a lifetime. Tom, don't you remember twice in a lifetime? Here we are again. Joey says, do you know if any names have been pitched for the women's Wargames match? Quite a few. Damage Control are obviously a key element of it. And also Charlotte Flair, Asuka, Bianca Belair, potentially the team as well. King Gaza says, if Roman doesn't drop the belt at Mania, do you think he will hold it till Mania 41? No, but I've been wrong before. Spider-Boss says, thank God Becky is helping the women's division of the main roster and especially NXT. Dominic says, just came on. Do you know who Roman's next opponent is going to be? No, I do not. It will be very, very clear by the end of tonight. Spider-Boss says, do you think Roxanne Perez peaked on NXT? Unfortunately, yes. It's another moment where someone should have been called up and they just didn't. Martin says, Breakker is going to be a superstar for me, to be honest. He is far better as a heel. And says, oh no, he hasn't said another major announcement, has he? Nope. To my knowledge. Not to my knowledge. Wargames is incoming. It will be announced shortly, and we will start to get a sight of the teams. Judgment Day are not planning to go quietly. We are likely to see them on SmackDown tonight as well. But of course, Cody Rhodes will be heavily featured. He is still feuding actively with Judgment Day. Drew McIntyre may well be involved in Wargames. Personally, I see him joining Judgment Day and working with them. So that's the direction I can see them going. I don't personally expect Roman to be in Wargames, but we'll see how that plays out. The Randy Orton news. I know a lot of people are waiting for this one. I've been reporting on Randy Orton since February, giving details about where he is in his recovery and what happens next. Now, I did mention quite recently, when it comes to Randy Orton, things have slowed down. Now there is a report from Fightful Select stating he'll be returning before Survivor Series. I don't find that unlikely. As I said, he's very close to cleared, to a point where they've been preparing creative for him. But there are question marks about whether or not the doctors will clear him, because they're not planning to bring him back if they believe it is a life-threatening injury. He will need to go through a few more hurdles and jump through a few more hoops to get there. He has not been cleared yet. However, as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, creative is being planned, and here we are, thank you Fightful Select behind your paywall, for confirming it. We've spoken about Nick Aldis, we've spoken about the Raw to SmackDown trade, we've spoken about NXT disappointment. Tag belts. Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso are your current tag team champions. The Bloodline are not going to let that go lightly. Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa are likely at some point to be facing off against Cody and Jey as we begin the rebuild towards Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns one more time. It does greatly increase the possibility of Gunther winning the Royal Rumble and facing off against Seth Rollins. I would love that, as you guys know, and I kind of think that's where we're headed now based on how we've been developing lately. But personally, when it comes to the tag belts, I think Jimmy and Solo will be facing off against Cody and Jay, but will not be winning the championships. Moxley, I wouldn't do that just yet. Roman's got to reimpose himself. Spider-Boss says, do you think Cody and Jay retain the tag team titles on Raw? Yes, I do, even though they're facing off against someone on SmackDown. Michael says, when you say that WWE wants Samoa Joe back, would they clear him? It seems likely, yes, Triple H would try and push that through. The fact that Samoa Joe is actively wrestling, very big tick in his column. Razar says, I think Cody and Jade might be exceptions to the rule when it comes to pushes, because if WWE starts snatching AEW talent and pushing all of them, that would piss off the WWE talent. There's a balance. Yes, there is, to the point that they won't be bringing in all of the AEW talent. They're not planning to start snatching. They have a list of about 7-8 people, and they'll go hell for leather for them, and no one else. Steve says, any updates on Tegan Nox? I got the impression a heel turn is coming after a loss to Becky Lynch on Raw and appearance on NXT this week. They are trying to give her established credibility and character and personality. They've not yet succeeded in doing so. Tegan Nox is not someone that creative have actually scripted anything for. Pardon me. Becky Lynch is the one who made this happen. So creative actually haven't been that involved. Now that Becky Lynch has had the match with her and has moved on to other women, I expect Tegan Nox is going to be kind of forgotten about again. Martin says, I'm off now, Tom. See you on Watch Along, mate, and all smash those likes. Don't forget to join Tom at 1 a.m. live. You won't be disappointed. That is, of course, the SmackDown Watch Party. We hold that every single Friday. We will be hosting it tonight as well. King Azza says, do you see Jon Moxley joining WWE again for a Hall of Fame induction and nothing else? He's very happy in AEW. Sean says, so NXT Anonymous showed a video of Paul Heyman talking to Ava. The video upset a lot of fans, and those fans don't want her in the bloodline and say she isn't ready for the main roster. Well, people need to stop being upset, because it might just mean that he's appearing on NXT more, or it might be, as we mentioned, the women's division is getting a build. Gomar says, hey Tom, how's it going? Going well, thank you, Gomar. Welcome to the show. Zane says, Frankie Kazarian versus Eddie Edwards was a great main event in Impact. Razar says, if Cody isn't the trade, that makes it more likely he wins the Rumble again, in my opinion. We'll have to wait and see on that one. I don't want him to be back-to-back, but it certainly sends a message to the MJFs of the world, doesn't it? Blue says, what about Priest? I still think that's a Mania cash-in. So it could potentially be Gunter versus Seth. Priest cashes in and steals the championship. That's where I'd go. JJ says, I really wanted Raw Women to have the Wargames match. I feel like they got the better stories and I just want Becky in another one. They don't have combined stories, though. They don't. There's no real teams happening on Raw in the women's division. There is on SmackDown, but there isn't on Raw. So I'd imagine we're going to have SmackDown teams with a couple of people added in. Moxley says, Jay and Cody facing Austin Theory and Grayson Waller on SmackDown for an open challenge. Austin Theory confirmed it. They are indeed. Keyshawn says, if MJF goes to WWE, how big of a blow would that be to AEW? Potentially a killer. Joey says, do you see Natalya teaming with Tegan since they teased something on Raw? Natalya, much like Becky, wants to help people develop and wants to get more women appearing on the WWE roster, particularly the main roster, just on TV and actively in play. Natalya wants to make it happen as well. So yes, she's working with a number of people to try and make that happen. Roger, never seen. And he says, Vladimir Kozlov is back in action. Okay. Blue says, when it comes to re-establishing the tag divisions, 2 separate tag champions would help. Gold is meant to build wrestlers. Indeed. And Razal says, do you think Wargames will be a 5-on-5 or 4v4? I think the men's will be a 5-on-5 and I think the women's will be a 4-on-4. Riyadh says, I think Natalya will be an excellent backstage producer once she retires. There is pedigree in her family and, of course, in her partner as well. That is our show. We are 50 minutes in. We peaked at, I believe it was... Yes, 86 viewers. We have 62 likes. We will be live again at 1 a.m, so in just over 2 hours for SmackDown for our watch party. Hope to see you all there, and we will be doing some more videos on the channel coming up on Sunday. I'm not sure whether to go full AEW or full Saudi Arabia deal with WWE. More to come on that one. In the meantime, as usual, I'll say now is that I've been Tom Colohue. You have been fantastic, and I'll see you all very soon.